I've never been.
Hello, and welcome to Cardinal Film Fights. I'm Justin Branson, and I will be your host, judge, and moderator. These people will, at some point, fight, I hope. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, do your name, major, and if you could only buy one thing at the movie theater, snack-wise, what would it be?
Hello, I'm two-time champion Trevor Michael Sheffield. I'm legally blind. I'm a telecommunications major. And if I had to buy one thing at the movie theater, it'd be the ticket.
I specified snack.
Snack, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I worked at a movie theater for 2 years, and I'm just gonna put this out there. They need the money. I usually just buy popcorn or Reese's Pieces if I know if I'm in for a really bad time. But I'd recommend giving them all of your money because these movies are not cheap. Capitalism.
All right.
Hi, I'm Kyle Israel, TCOM major, theater minor, and what snack would I get? Snow caps. Any other answers wrong?
I'm Haley Parnell. I am a TCOM major and a film and screenwriting minor, and I would get probably just popcorn. That's my go-to.
Respectable choice. I'm host, judge, moderator, Justin Branson, and I'm partial to sweet tarts ropes. So today, we're going to be getting into something a little interesting. What historical event should be adapted to film or TV? We're going to do this in the normal fashion with a 1-minute introduction followed by the 5 minutes of fighting and 30-second conclusions. So we're going to start our introductions that side and move our way back. Haley, get us started.
Okay, for my historical event that I think should be turned into a movie is Jack the Ripper. There are not very many films that I could find based off of Jack the Ripper. Any of them that I could find, I did not recognize, and most other people could not. There have, however, been some that have been inspired by them, but we don't really have one that show all of the information that we know now. So I think in the midst of all of the popularity among true crime movies, that it would be a very entertaining unsolved mystery that we could venture into for the screen. That is all.
American Indian boarding schools. That's a phrase you probably haven't heard, so let me give you another one you have heard as a comparison. Japanese internment camps. If that phrase makes you feel depressed and just a little bit disgusted, if not more, you are in the right emotional ballpark. To quote the schools themselves, their goal was to kill the Indian, save the man. They stole Native American children from their homes and brought them into boarding schools where they attempted to destroy Indian culture and assimilate them into white culture, a last hurrah of manifest destiny, if you will. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is probably not the best idea for any movie. Why would you ever want to see that? However, I would argue you already have seen a movie like that, and that movie is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, so you're going to see it again.
Have you all? Let me tell you all about a figure. You ever heard of the Lone Ranger? You know, the guy in the mask rides around on a silver white horse, uses basically magic bullets while parading around with his Native American friend. Now, what if I told you that that figure was based off a real-life person? And what if I told you that the Lone Ranger himself is a whitewashed caricature of this person? Enter Mr. Bass Reeves. He was the first black deputy U.S. Marshal. He arrested more than 3,000 felons after escaping slavery by beating the utter crap out of his owner during the Civil War and escaping into native territory and thereby living among them. He brought in some of the most dangerous criminals of all time, never wounded during the process, and even had to arrest his own son for murder. Now, if that kind of story doesn't sound like it's worthy of the screen, I don't know what isn't.
Strong starts from all. I am interested to see where this goes, to say the least. So if we can get 5 minutes on the clock, we're going to enter the open forum where you guys can pretty much do whatever you want. I only step in if actual blood is drawn.
Okay, I'll start. I just wanted on the record that Native American parents didn't have control over where their children were able to go to school until 1978 with the Indian Child Welfare Act.
And what does that have to do in this case?
It's just another sad thing to put to a sad movie.
But how does that like move against my act here? It's like you mentioned that we've already seen this movie. You said The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and it's like, is it going to be the same story? Are you basically just going to show us the same story over again?
No.
And I realize in our day and age that we sometimes have to have these stories beaten to our heads over and over and over again because people have the memories of like goldfish. But it's like in how you pitch that movie, yes, it does sound sad. But it's like when you talk about making a movie, you need to have an angle. You need to have a story behind it. With Bass Reeves, you have that angle baked in. It is a true American legend who fought against all odds and became one of the greatest lawmen of American history. And with Jack the Ripper, well, I looked on IMDb a little earlier. I found approximately 117 movies, television shows, and other narratives alone about Mr. Jack the Ripper. And in turn, I feel that if we did make a film about Jack the Ripper in this day and age, it is known that Mr. Ripper, he only had 5 victims, all of which were female, all of which, if I remember properly, were eviscerated in rather creative ways. Now, I realize we live in an age where violence against women is heavily prominent, and I feel that, especially within regards to, I'm not one to blame media that causes people to do these things, but with the atmosphere that we currently live in, I feel like if you did a film about the Ripper, potentially from that perspective, it could it could potentially glorify violence against women.
I don't think it's going to glorify violence against women. I think it's just going to tell the story of how it was. I think everybody can see that, and with, like I said, the popularity of the true crime stories today, nobody's complaining about them glorifying the murders of women, even though that has happened in some of them before. And I just want to point out, you said that he mentioned A Boy in the Striped Pajamas being like his thing. Your whole thing is based off of The Lone Ranger. I know, yes, you said that it's a whitewashed version, yet that is the story.
Well, it's more than just that, obviously. I mean, it's like you have these angles where he's obviously having to deal with his own family being up against the law at some point, where he had to put his life and limb on the line for his country, and ultimately had to fight back against the white oppressive systems of that time in order to be able to do these kinds of things. It's like, this is more than just some smiling, friendly ranger on the side. This guy had to fucking fight. Pardon my language.
Perhaps I misspoke. I only cited The Boy in the Striped Pajamas as an example of a movie you probably had to see in your curriculum to recognize that our species is one fraught with injustice.
Oh, of course.
And this movie, I think, should be, if this movie would be produced, which, considering some history books don't teach the Trail of Tears properly, that's not entirely likely, but I'm saying it needs to exist to remind us that we live in a country that once decided that an entire subset of people were not entitled to the education of their own children.
Oh, no, I'm not denying the fact that people should know about that, but by that same token, I feel like if we're talking like a massive motion picture, I feel like in order to kind of get these kinds of messages across, you need to be able to have a hero who was in these kinds of positions, who was able to fight back and ultimately be able to prove himself. And, I feel like with these stories that you guys are trying to tell, it's more rote. It's stuff that we have already seen. And especially in our day and age, where we have these heroes of color and heroes who are able to go up against the white oppressive systems that constantly try to beat them down, that the story of Bass Reeves is one that deserves to be told.
But this is just a background. You could very feasibly put a strong Native American actor or actress, I'd prefer actress personally, that could go against the white oppressive system. This is these historical facts are just backdrops. A movie can manipulate that as they see fit. We can make a hero that can do exactly what your character does.
And I think just because you mentioned that the stories have been told before, in which case you said you had seen many of the Jack the Ripper, you had seen many things that were Jack the Ripper movies. Those aren't things that many people can name off their head. I know that I haven't seen any of them. I don't know much about any of them. And I'm going based off of what an audience would want to see. I mean, obviously, it's nothing against the historical event, but going based off of what audiences are interested in, it seems that with all of the true crime things going on, that it is the most entertaining thing that we could make from a historical event in this day and age.
Well, I mean, I just feel like with the story of Reeves, it is something that I feel would compel audiences both on an emotional level, and it's like it can be entertaining on an action level, obviously, and it can actually like be entertaining on an emotional and kind of a cerebral level, because you're dealing with a real life person, and you're ultimately going to deal with the fact that, you know, Americans and, you know, the white entertainment kind of overlords whitewashed this person's story so that it could appeal to the people of the 50s and that kind of entire generation of people, effectively erasing his contributions to not only this legend but to his own life.
How are we doing on time there?
1 second off. Or clear, done. Sorry.
All right.
All right. That's as much as I can allow, but I'd really love to hear more. Now you will have your 30 seconds to conclude, wrap it up, and maybe sway me. TMS, would you like to start?
All right. With Bass Reeves, you're dealing with the story of a real-life person who went against all odds, being a person of color in the age of the Civil War, no less. He had to fight for almost everything in his life. And ultimately, he goes on to be a shining example of the good that a person can do, in the ability to fight against the crime and just the negatives of his country. And it would ultimately be shine a light on the legend that has ultimately been shadowed by his own legend.
In The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, you follow two young children from different backgrounds as they try to surmount impossible social odds. With the Indian American boarding school story, you could feasibly do a similar thing. It's the background for you to use there's a lot to work with.
Most of my point I pointed out, but Jack the Ripper you already have the story there, and true crime movies and television shows are so popular right now, but you're still getting something new to it, with the setting being the late 1800s, and I just haven't seen it done before in the correct way that is entertaining to audiences today.
Thank you, fine people. Do we have any facts to check before I get the brain computer on this?
Everything checked out. Something to add, the Jack the Ripper's identity was actually revealed with DNA evidence very recently, so just something to consider.
Should we unmask him on live television?
I think it might be a little late for that.
Anything can happen on the screen.
Well, I'm going to take a second to get the old noggin going. Act friendly or something.
Okay. I like your hair.
Thanks.
I'm going to let you two fight it out over whose hair I'm referring to.
I mean,
I like your
mine.
hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was yours.
All right,
Yeah.
stalemate. That's good. It's like Batman v Superman, except about hair.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've honestly never had Swedish fish before, and these are delicious.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself because, Kyle, I'm sorry, but you are in third place.
That's fun.
Yeah. See, I see what you're doing. I see that there's a very wide backdrop and you can apply a lot of stories to these, but that also kind of stunts it because you don't get a clear vision of a narrative. I know that that's maybe splitting hairs here, but you all had very good points, and I'm just getting her going. You feel me? Please,
Sure.
Please say you feel me. I'll continue.
I won't use those words,
Okay.
but sure.
Well, in second place, we have two-time champ TMS. I was enthralled by the idea when you started out, the life of this man. It just was, you got me going, TMS. You got me going. You did well to make sure that I knew that this was one badass gunslinger, and also that you could expose who the real hero was behind these stories. And I dig it, man. I dig it.
Thank you.
Haley,
Hi.
you may or may not have won.
Okay.
I'll leave that for you to decide. But Jack the Ripper, obviously we're playing into the era of true crime where a lot of people like true crime, TV shows, podcasts. It's all over the place. People just enjoy it. So For the movie or TV show that needs to be set to a historical event, I think Jack the Ripper would fulfill the needs of the people and also be an interesting story to tell the right way. This is Cardinal Film Fights. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, you can like or dislike because, you have freedom of choice and all that. But if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us pretty much anywhere at Card Film Fights. I'd say we had a good time today, guys. Wouldn't you?
Sure. Why not?
Sure. Why not? Have a good day. Good luck with that.
Is this a part where we tell?